Hello and welcome back to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time for the second instalment of the H segment of my football alphabet series, where I go through clubs and players whose names or surnames begin with a particular letter. As you may have been able to tell by the title, this episode is dedicated to the 5 of the best figureheads within the world of football whose surnames begin with the letter H. And if you want to check out any of the other episodes that I've done in this series thus far, there is a playlist link that you can check out either in the description or on the end screen of this video. And whilst you're here, of course, please don't forget, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. And without any further ado, here is my Hall of Fame of 5 of the most important figures in the world of football whose surnames begin with the letter H. Number 1. Thierry Henry. One of the greatest players of the Premier League era, if not the greatest, Thierry Henry was one of those players who simply made you fall in love with football if ever you watched him at his scintillating best, with his pace, agility, trickery, dead-eye for goal, and capability of producing an out-of-this-world moment at the drop of a hat, making him beloved by everyone. Well, everyone apart from people from Ireland. Born in 1977, Henry began his pro career at Monaco after progressing through the famous Clairefontaine Youth Academy, and after winning the Division 1 Young Player of the Year award in 1996-97, as his 9 goals helped Monaco to a league title, he was part of France's 1998 World Cup winning squad and moved to Juventus in January 1999. However, he struggled in Turin, unable to adjust to Serie A's style of play, and Arsenal, then coached by Arsene Wenger, bought him for £11 million that summer. Eyebrows might have been raised at the fee at the time, but Wenger knew exactly what he was getting, and his decision to play Henry up front proved to be a masterstroke. After 2 very impressive seasons in which he netted 48 goals in all competitions, it was between 2001 and 2006 when Henry was at his explosive, deadly and creative best, and for each of those 5 years you could very easily stake a claim to say that Henry was the best striker in world football. In 2002-03, alongside his 24 league goals, he notched up 20 assists, which is still a record to this day, albeit since equalled by Kevin De Bruyne. And in 2003-04, he won his 2nd Premier League winners' medal in an unbeaten campaign for the Gunners, in which the Frenchman netted 30 goals. His individual honours are almost too many to mention, but they include a Premier League record 4 Golden Boots, 6 PFA Team of the Year inclusions, all of them consecutive, 2 PFA Player of the Years, and a runners-up spot in 2003 Ballon d'Or voting. And in November 2005, he overtook Ian Wright to become Arsenal's all-time top goalscorer. In 2007 though, Henry stunned the footballing world, including an 8-year-old me, by moving to Barcelona for €24 million, where he once again flourished as part of a front 3 alongside Samuel Eto'o and Lionel Messi, scoring 45 goals between 2007 and 2009 as Barcelona won a continental treble in the 2008-09 campaign. However, it was his double handball against Ireland in the 2010 World Cup playoff, which led to France's winning goal, that defined his 2009-10 season more than anything else, and despite being remorseful about it afterwards, the Irish population have, understandably, never forgiven him. He spent the final 4.5 years of his career with the New York Red Bulls, barring a sentimental 2-month loan spell back at Arsenal in 2012, where he scored 2 more goals, including the winner on his 2nd debut against Leeds in the FA Cup, to take his overall tally for the Gunners to 228, before retiring in December 2014. He has tried his hand at punditry and at management, but after a disastrous stint at Monaco and a 2-year stay at CF Montreal, he is back with the Belgium national team as their assistant manager. Number 2. Nando Haifuti. One of the most influential players in world football history, Nando Haifuti redefined what it meant to be a centre-forward and was one of the most important players of Hungary's magical Magyars team of the 1950s, if not the most important. Born in 1922, he made his debut at Elektromos in 1942 before moving to MTK Budapest 5 years later, where he spent the rest of his career. He scored no fewer than 238 goals in 328 games for the club, transforming them from a mid-table side to titans of the Hungarian game, winning 3 league titles throughout the 1950s. It is not his club exploits for which he is most remembered though, but rather his achievements on the international stage and how he revolutionised his role as a centre-forward. Although he originally played on the right wing for the national team, he moved to being a deep-lying centre-forward, or what we call a false 9 today, following Hungary's gold medal success at the 1952 Olympics. He would come back to help out in defence, drop deep to find space to move the opposition centre-back out of position, and create space for the wingers and inside forwards to run in behind. His vision, guile, technical ability, movement on and off the ball, and deadliness in front of goal made him almost impossible to deal with, and in the vast majority of Hungary's games, opposition defences simply did not know how to handle him. Nowhere was this more obvious than when Hungary played England in 1953 at Wembley, where Hidegkuti did not give the English defence a moment's peace and netted a hat-trick in that infamous 6-3 demolition. 3 of 39 goals he would score for his country. At the 1954 World Cup, Hidegkuti netted 4 goals, including 2 in an 8-3 win over West Germany in the group stages, although they would be stunned by the same opponents in the final, who beat them 3-2, denying the magical Magyars the chance to lift football's ultimate prize. Following the Hungarian Civil War, Hidegkuti was one of the very few players from that magical Magyars team who remained in Hungary and played for them at the 1958 World Cup, but upon Hungary's early exit, he retired from football completely. A nomadic managerial career took him to MTK, Fiorentina, Al Ahly of Egypt, and Al Ahly of the United Arab Emirates, amongst a few other teams, and in 2016, 14 years after his death at the age of 79, MTK named their newly constructed stadium after him. Number 3. Jupp Heynckes. Jupp Heynckes is one of surprisingly few people within the world of football who has had a world-class playing and managerial career, so it's only right that he takes up a spot in this video. Born in 1945, the day after World War II ended no less, Heynckes started out with his local team, Borussia Mönchengladbach, and in his debut campaign, he notched up 23 goals in 26 games as the Foles won promotion to the Bundesliga for the first time. After 3 years spent at Hanover between 1967 and 1970, he returned to Gladbach and became one of the figureheads of their golden generation during the 1970s. Leading Gladbach's line with distinction and class, he only hit lower than 20 goals in all competitions in a single season twice between 1970-71 and 1977-78, including notching 40 or more goals for 3 seasons in a row. His efforts were rewarded with 4 Bundesliga titles, 1 UEFA Cup and a DFB Pokal, and although the European Cup would ultimately elude him as a player, as Gladbach lost their only final appearance to Liverpool in 1977, he was a part of Germany's 1972 Euros and 1974 World Cup winning teams. He ended his career with a 5-goal haul in a 12-0 demolition of Borussia Dortmund, which remains to this day the Bundesliga's record win, and his tally of 220 Bundesliga goals is bettered only by Gerd Müller, Robert Lewandowski and Klaus Fischer. After retiring, he turned his hand to coaching, staying at Gladbach for the next 9 years, and although he didn't win any silverware, he kept them competitive both domestically and in Europe. A new challenge came calling for him at Bayern in 1987, where he won 2 Bundesliga titles, but after a poor start to the 1991-92 campaign, he was fired. Uli Hoeneß would later call it the biggest mistake of his career. After spells at Athletic Bilbao, Eintracht Frankfurt and Tenerife, Real Madrid appointed him in 1997, and he finally got his hands on the Champions League in his debut campaign. But in typical Real fashion, he was sacked immediately after the success, following a 4th place finish in the league. Are they ever really satisfied? More stints at Benfica, Schalke, Athletic Club, Gladbach and Leverkusen preceded the 2 years which people in football mostly remember him for, and certainly those in the modern day. His spell at Bayern between 2011 and 2013. After the club finished runners-up in every competition they entered in 2011-12, Heynckes emphatically put things right straight away, and the Bavarians became the first German side to win a continental treble in 2012-13, lifting the Bundesliga with a record points tally of 91, which still stands to this day, the DFB Pokal and the Champions League, following a 2-1 win over Borussia Dortmund in the final at Wembley. Heynckes promptly retired, but was enticed back for one last stint as Bayern manager in 2017-18, following Carlo Ancelotti's early season dismissal, and the firefighter worked his magic once again, steering them to yet another Meisterschale. He retired for good that summer, having been involved in 1,038 Bundesliga games as a player or a coach, 5 more than anyone else. Number 4. Kurt Hamren. My rogue call for this video is Kurt Hamren, a Swedish winger who spent most of his career tearing up Serie A, but I promise you his selection is not just because I'm trying to be hipster, although that is partly the reason in fairness. Born in 1934, he started out at AIK, where he scored 54 goals in 62 games between 1952 and 1955, before moving to Juventus and then Padova. It was at the latter club where he really made an impression, as his 20 strikes from 30 games, as well as his pivotal role in helping Sweden reach the 1958 World Cup final, including a goal in the semi-final against West Germany, was enough to convince Fiorentina to snap him up, and it would prove to be a wise move. A right winger who was capable on either foot, Hamren was blessed with remarkable pace, ability on the ball, trickery, and a clinical eye for goal, with his eventual goal-scoring output being exceptional even in comparison with the wingers of today, never mind in the 1950s and 1960s, an era in which wingers weren't relied upon to bag tons of goals. Across 9 years at Fiorentina, he netted an astounding 208 goals in all competitions, and to this day, he remains the club's all-time top goalscorer, 1 goal ahead of Gabriel Batistuta, and the 8th highest goalscorer in Serie A history. Whilst the league title would ultimately elude him, he did still win the inaugural European Cup Winners' Cup in 1960-61, as well as 2 Coppa Italias in 1961 and 1966, and the Mitropa Cup in 1966 as well. After departing Florence in 1967, he spent time at AC Milan and Napoli before concluding an outstanding career with IFK Stockholm back in his native Sweden in 1972. Since retiring as a player, he has worked as a scout for AC Milan but has set up his permanent home in Florence, the place where, for 9 years, he was one of the best wingers on the planet. Number 5. Ernst Happel. Our final inclusion is a man primarily known for his achievements as a manager, namely Ernst Happel, the chain-smoking cognac enthusiast who seemingly hated talking in sentences that were any longer than about 7 words or so. Born in 1925, the start to his playing career was delayed by World War II, during which he was arrested by the Americans in 1945, but escaped from them by jumping off a train in Munich. He spent almost all of his playing days, barring 1 season at AC Paris in the mid-1950s, at Rapid Vienna, where he won 6 Österreicher Bundesliga titles as a centre-back. With his intellect and constant thinking about the game, including how best to implement a high pressing line and offside trap which he learned after a friendly game in Brazil, it was always likely that he would go into management immediately upon retirement. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. He began at ADO Den Haag, where he lasted 7 years and transformed them from perennial relegation candidates to constantly pushing for European football, and his crowning glory was lifting the Dutch Cup in 1968. Feyenoord came calling the year after, as they were looking for a strong-minded manager to guide the club in their 1969-70 European Cup campaign, and decided, rightly as it turned out, that Happel was their man. Always a thinker and doer rather than an elaborate speaker, his most famous quote was, "Stop talking, just play football," an approach that summed up his practical style of coaching to the letter. Ultimately, it worked, as Feyenoord lifted the European Cup in 1970 and the Intercontinental Cup and the Eredivisie the season after. And if you want to learn more about Feyenoord's team of that era, I have made an entire video dedicated to it. Just look up Feyenoord on my channel and you'll probably find it. Happel left Feyenoord in 1973 to move to Sevilla and then Club Brugge, but he came back to the Netherlands in 1977 to take charge of the national team for the 1978 World Cup. His message to his players prior to every game was simple: "Gentlemen, 2 points." And it took them all the way to the final, but they lost in acrimonious circumstances 3-1 in extra time to the hosts Argentina. Following a brief spell at Standard Liège, he took charge of Hamburg in 1981 and brought them 2 Bundesliga titles, a DFB Pokal and the European Cup, becoming the first manager, and one of only 5 to date, to win the European Cup or Champions League with 2 different clubs as a manager. After that stint ended in 1987, he returned to his native Austria with Swarovski Tirol, with whom he won 2 Österreicher Bundesliga titles. But shortly after becoming Austria's national team coach in 1992, his chain-smoking habits sadly caught up with him, and he died of lung cancer in November that year. The Praterstadion in Vienna was renamed the Ernst Happel Stadion in his memory, and it would go on to host the Euro 2008 final between Germany and Spain. How fitting that the team who won that day, Spain, was inspired by a total football system that Happel himself helped to create. And that just about wraps up today's video, looking at 5 of the most important figures within the world of football whose surnames begin with the letter H. If you think I missed any ones out, let me know which ones down in the comments below. And whilst you're there, of course, please don't forget, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. You can ring the notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a video straight away. You can check out all of the other episodes in the Football Alphabet playlist using the link on screen or in the description. And you can follow me on Twitter at Hazzabhajan. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you then.